So let it be written. So let it be done. This is at Conline 2020. And in Feygrave, there is a place known as Ashford. This seedy outpost city finds itself around the burnt bark of this huge sunthorn tree that was scorched by wildfire. This ashen tree rises like a black tombstone against the verdant skyline of Feygrave. And in it is the burnt tankard. It's one of the bars that runs along one of the walls of this place. And to say that Ashford has a black market is ridiculous. It is a black market. And the barkeep there, Pellium, spends most of his time collecting rare spirits and wines and ales from all over Dragongrin. And so the shelves run from floor to ceiling behind Pellium, often called Pell, stocked with all manner of spirits. And there are a couple of Ardor there, and they're drinking a toast, remembering Lightfall. It's the toast that they used to say when they would win a battle. And they haven't said it in a long time, but today is the anniversary of when one of their comrades fell in battle. And so if you'll raise your glasses with me to this toast, and they stand one at a time. One stands and says, "May you mend the first break." Another, "May you kill the first snake." And a third, "May you conquer everything you undertake." And everyone in the bar takes a sip. And in unison, they all say, "Sláinte." We begin our game today having just seen this bleak veil only about a week ago, this wall of arcane energy that enveloped Feygrave. And so I know we ended on a cliffhanger. So if there was anything that would be stuck in your mind for that week as you travel to Ashford, those that remain, you can tell me what that might be. Just as a refresher, Matt, you saw the spectral images, or Efram saw the spectral images of what looked like probably the end or the sort of the falling action after a battle of Lightfall. Some people standing around. And then Barker, you had this intense vision of a hawk flying from a verdant green branch to a withered autumn branch, grabbing that branch in its talons and then snapping it. And then it did that cool movie thing where it flies right at your eyes. It's like the camera, and then you wake up. So that is what the two of you saw. If you have anything that you want to reflect on as you travel to Ashford, you may do that.
I think for Efram, it's been some time since he's devoted any serious thought to his mother or her experiences in Lightfall. And in fact, he's spent a lot of time over the last 2 years actively not thinking about his mother and running from Lightfall, the aftermath of Lightfall. And so seeing this vision of these beleaguered soldiers beaten and bloodied and knowing that they had lost, walking home defeated, knowing that Gulvaras had succeeded, he knows that one of those soldiers was his mother. Maybe he even saw her face shadowed under the helm, younger than he would have ever known her. And that image, that vision weighs heavy on his mind. And so he is on the trip to Ashford, quiet, reserved, and says little to his friends.
It would be a silent journey indeed, as Jeremiah Diggs is also more quiet than usual. Not to say that he's usually very talkative. You're used to this at this point, but he's even less participative than usual. He dwells in his mind on this image. He's had visions before, he being a Grimdal. It's nothing new, but it's always encoded, draped in metaphor. Broken dishes, memories of grandparents, memories that never happened, memories that happened, but he just catches glimpses. But this time, something so firmly symbolic for Talus, the soaring life tree, withering in the sky, Feygrave, the potentially decrepit root at its base, and this mysterious figure known as the Hawk, which has been rumored to have destroyed the forces of Retina in Talus and is preparing to take over the entire life tree. This, on top of an already unusually distracted mind, creates a version of Jeremiah Diggs that just can't seem to pay attention long enough to hear a full sentence spoken to him, remember certain routines, former routines when setting up camp during a journey, and everyone else would be noticing this as well.
Iska, you owe a lot of favors in Ashford, unfortunately for you. And so that's up to you how you want to deal with that and what's on your mind. But while you tell me potentially what is on Iska's mind, I want all three of you, so not you, Cassie, but Barker, Matt, and James, roll me a d20. James, you don't have to worry about the result yet, but Barker and Matt, whenever you can, if you want to just put those results in the chat. And James, Iska's got, and I have, buddy, I have some plans too. I'm going to hit you with some great stuff. So you owe basically everyone in Feygrave something. And you usually borrow from someone else to pay the next one. And so it's like, what's going through your mind is you're heading silently toward Ashford alone with just the echoes of your thoughts.
Iska, moments before having this maybe flood of realization about all the things that are to come in Ashford, just happened to be moments prior to that musing on how usually when he's with a few other people, by this point they've yelled at him and told him to get the hell out of there by now, and so he's almost on his best behavior. And as they're heading to Ashford and they're walking, it occurs to him that, oh well, he can see on the horizon now that moment where they're going to turn and look at him and tell him to get the hell out of here, because the moment somebody comes up to him in Ashford or says something, or he knows it's not going to go well, and he's hoping there's a few people he hopes to definitely not see, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then James, whenever you have an opportunity as well, if you want to just put what you got on the roll in the chat. So what I'm doing is we're going to use glances from the Treacherous Travel System. And so basically a glance is just this momentary description of something that you see or something that was done along the way that really just is supposed to be the feeling of a journey and essentially showing you how some good and some bad things can happen during travel. So Matt, for you, you actually had a missive crow delivery. So along the way, somewhere, somehow, a missive crow found you and handed you a sort of a strange parcel. And I'll leave, I have an idea of what it says. I'll leave it up to you if you've opened it yet or not. And you can just let me know if and when you do.
I think that Efram knows what's inside too, and I think he's going to wait until he gets to Ashford to open it up. It's one of those things where you get a work email at like 5:06, and you're like, I'm going to deal with that in the morning.
That's perfect.
That's sort of what's happening here. Yeah,
that's great. And so, this is kind of cool. Diggs, you actually, at some point along the way, found an Arkan. And so you will be able to, at some point, roll on the Arkan bauble table. And we'll just kind of figure that out as we go. But you'll have this Arkan, and we'll basically just put it on your character so that if you want to use it to trade on the black market or whatever, we can kind of figure out what it is on the fly. But for now, Diggs found an Arkan in the woods.
Listen, a lot of stuff has been falling from the sky. So
great point.
Oh, that's true. I was going to say maybe he stopped to bury somebody and like dug up an Arkan, but I like the idea that an Arkan like hit him in the head and like fell.
It's like a penny from the World Trade Center. Like,
yeah, he just
like, or the Empire State
over.
Building probably would have been a more appropriate reference. The Iska. So you are, you have 3 merchants on the road. So you will have had an opportunity to purchase something from the red sale market if you had the coin. So the way that I'd like to handle it, if you're cool with it, is if you had the coin or if you had the favor, essentially I imagine it being this like red sale backpacker. A red sale backpacker that essentially has this like bag of stuff. What I will let you do is, at some point during this session, I will narratively let you have an object you need.
Okay.
So if you're
awesome.
like,
that sounds great. Yeah.
Hey, I bought rope. Can I use rope from, whatever? So it'll be like 1, and you can decide how much you spend on it based on how much you have. It can be whatever. I think that would be a fun chip to cash in.
I think that's really cool. That'll be great.
Cool. And there you go. Those are glances from the treacherous travel section. There's also some bad stuff. You all just happen to get pretty lucky. And so let me just do one thing here. All right. So as you enter Ashford and sort of, wash up into its seedy sort of feeling, I want you to just think of it as, and this is extremely narrative. I kind of wanted this session, especially with the black market part, to be like, let's explore it together. You tell me what stalls are there. What do you want to see? What do you want to experience from Dragongrin? I have some things that I'll point out, but if there's really something you want to explore, we can totally do that. But I'd like to think that Ashford is sort of like an edge of the galaxy cantina situation, but a whole city of it, where refugees, fugitives, maybe even like Marrow who have gone AWOL, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And it's kind of got its own neutral sort of Western frontier law system where if you mess with somebody, you'll get messed with. If you mess up, you might get punished, but everyone's generally like, hey, let's just work together to stay alive. And so, Iska, you know a lot of people here. And they're pretty much, you can see a lot of people starting to catch your eye. Like, how long has it been since you've been here, you think?
I probably don't walk in this way, if that makes sense. I've been here a few times before, but it's kind of, like slipping in the back of somewhere or going into a bar with a poor disguise, but kind of maybe keeping to the back. So it feels a little weird to maybe be walking down what's probably the main drag of this place in full view. But there's something about everything that's happening that is giving Iska a sense of confidence in something. I don't know. Iska, something weird is happening to him where the interactions he's had with everyone and maybe helping somebody a little bit helped him kind of come to terms with maybe other people aren't always just out to get him, right? So
sure,
he's not sure what's going to really happen, but he's ready to face it, and he's going to kind of see if his world's going to fall apart, and these people, I'm going to guilt them role play wise to be nice to me. But he's kind of waiting to see if how everyone else is going to react, or if they'll understand that it's Dragongrin, or what's going to happen. So he's very much very anxious, and it's probably showing physically.
That's perfect. And so I think that as you're glancing around looking at people who are catching eyes with you, it's that awkward thing where I know I owe you $50 and we make eye contact and I'm going to just keep walking. But we both thought about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's a Sarek that approaches you immediately, and he has the sort of like whistly rasp of some of the Sarek whose throats and things have been decayed. But he's like, Iska, it's been a long time.
Hey, yeah. It has been. How are you?
Well, since you trespassed upon those sacred grounds and the militant worshippers who revere them are seeking me to punish for that crime, I haven't been too great.
Listen, one man's sacred is another man's, pish posh. You understand, right? I have my job. I'm a gravedigger, and we get a pass. They understand. Wherever you want to, they get it, right? It's not trespassing. You may feel that way, but we have an understanding. It's okay. And he would maybe utter a little bit of the Silverwise cant, like maybe like a little, what you would do when people would say something and spit after their name in almost disrespect. Almost like Iska would begin almost playing you don't understand the dead card.
Sure. And so what's really funny is this is a Sarek who is literally sentient undead. And
right?
So,
yeah.
So I think that what the reply would be, he'd say, which is fine, but you promised me an Arkan in return. I took the heat. You still owe me the Arkan. And the Silverwise, in their undeath, are able to see colors that the living aren't, and they believe in something called chromafade, and they have these hues that they see. And he's sort of just looking at you, and he's like, your colors are all wrong. You're desperate, Iska. I can see it. Do you know the color of desperation? Because it's not pretty. Anyway. And he just, I'll let you go, but he basically just like, don't leave Ashford without giving me my Arkan.
Iska would really just nervously chuckle, and he's the kind of guy that looks on the bright side. So he imagines a few ways that this could have maybe gone worse. And he, feels somebody's watching over him, maybe from beyond the grave. He gets that kind of superstitious, little deja vu maybe kind of feeling. And I'll get you your Arkan. Don't worry. And he looks a little, kind of sees if Diggs is looking at him, and if he's looking, just kind of.
You would all notice that there's tons of bustling and different booths and different things like that, but there's specifically this one sort of tent, and it's fairly large, and the flaps of this tent are pulled wide open. You can't quite see what's inside, but it has the largest crowd. And there are people gathered in trying to peer over and trying to look. And some people are placing bets even. And you hear murmuring and oh, yeah, yes. And so something pretty interesting is going on in that tent.
If Iska saw something like that, it would be the next place he goes. He would begin looking for pockets to pick on the way to place a bet on whatever was going on in that tent.
If you really want to try to pick some pockets, you can, like, legit. Or if that was just narrative, like, you're
It
keeping
was
an
narrative,
eye out.
but like keeping an eye out. Like I'm not trying to get caught picking somebody's pocket right now.
Sure.
But if I see an easy mark, right, he'd give it a shot. Maybe, maybe he does try to pick a pocket, right? He sees a real obvious one. There's a drunk guy at the bar or something, and we can play that out, or we can narrative. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no.
I,
Okay.
Something also that Iska would want to know, because I assume that we all stumbled on this Archon together, because Diggs is very distractible, especially going into Ashford. But you might have seen, depending on your choice, James, you might have seen him pick up a prismatic polyhedral, almost like a gemstone.
Oh, yeah.
And you might remember that when he picked it up, it was purple, and now it's green. It just kind of shifted a hue. But he's only pulled it out twice just to examine it. But it's exactly which pocket it's in.
Nice. And James, very specifically in Ashford, it's like trying to do a magic trick for magicians. If you're going to try to pick somebody's pocket, you are really, really good. Because
so
you know what I'm saying? So, and I know, I'm just saying, like, narratively, just to kind of set the tone of like where we are. It's like, I know you're not literally trying, but I love the idea that Iska is still looking around for a mark, even among those who are rarely marked.
And I think that's a good point. I think that's what it is Iska does his normal thing where he would look for an easy pocket to pick. And like he would meet somebody's gaze that realized what he was doing, right? He basically openly cases the joint, and somebody's like, "Are you kidding me right now?
Are you kidding me? Like,
move along." And so he would, he would think better of it.
So you have, as you approach, and if I don't know what everyone else would be doing, but anyone who approaches the tent would see, and Iska, you would probably have to stand up on something, or weasel your way through. Like, do you want to try to like weasel your way through to kind of see?
I would probably, I would like have some, I'd be pushing right through people, sorries and everything, but I'd be getting right to the front. I'm the guy that gets all the way to the front in the concert. It's just like, no, I understand that you're staring at my back. I don't care.
So what you see are 2 marrow. And these marrow it's not very common to see marrow here in Ashford. It's kind of an unspoken agreement. Marrow stays out of Ashford, and anyone from Ashford stays away from Ravenrock. Like, do your thing, and if we pass, it's just neutral. If things get messy, life is life in Dragongrin. So it's actually a little surprising to see these marrow here, but they're standing in front of a woman, and this woman, Cassie, describe to me what Kathleen would look like.
And they're standing just in the middle of the tent.
Yeah. So what you're doing is and I'll kind of tell you like what's going on, but you are seated and you're about to perform a ritual for these marrow, and these marrow basically standing there with their arms crossed. Maybe they've put a bag of gold or goods on the table, and they're like, "All right, Death Speaker, do your job. Tell us what happened."
So Kathleen, slowly, she reaches for the gold and drags it off the table. Her skin has turned gray, and she moves laboriously, like it's so difficult. And she reaches for the small totem that she's crafted, a black, roughly carved, one-eyed fox. She takes it, holds it in her hands, and closes her one eye. And with a slow exhale, the eye starts to light up, pulsing and pulsing as she tries to reach into the gray.
Take a point of inspiration for that.
Yay.
That was phenomenal. So here's the thing. I'm going to tell you what you see. You completely have full agency to tell the marrow and anyone else in the room whatever you want.
All right.
So it's hazy, like a dream. And as you say, it's gray. And so essentially what you're doing is looking and seeing what happened. What the Marrow have paid you to do is find an answer to a very important question. 2 weeks ago, Malvio Rand, the Lord of Ash of Feygrave, was killed. Some Marrow believe that his second in command, Diego Silva, murdered him on purpose. Other Marrow dividedly believe that it was an accident while they were hunting a mythical creature. These Marrow are here with a substantial amount of gold for you to tell them what you see, because they want to know the truth, and they shouldn't be here. So the vision you get is of this hunting party stalking through Feygrave. And Malvio Rand is in the front. Diego Silva at his side, as always. Trees rustle. And the rest is a blur. You see an enormous shape. The shape that you might know, or might not know, is a typhon. This mammalian opposite of a dragon has enormous wings, the mane of a lion, snow white fur with orange highlights. But you don't see the typhon kill Malvio Rand. You see Malvio Rand point, and as he turns to Diego Silva plunges a spear into his heart. And so Malvio Rand falls. Diego Silva is the only one there. The rest of the hunting party comes through. What happened? What happened? It was the creature. Get it? And then you come back.
All right. So the fox in front of her is pulsing and she's sitting up straight. From her lips, just slightly open as she's concentrating, you see her breath coming out, but it looks almost like dust drifting on the wind as she zones in. I know. And she reaches her hand out, slowly pointing at one of the marrows as everything starts to come in to focus. And quietly, just barely audible except to anybody in the crowd except for maybe Iska, says, Diego. And then the light snaps off.
And the marrow immediately erupt like, I knew it! I knew it! We knew it! All right. And they basically push past anybody. Unless anyone purposely stands in their way in this group, everyone parts like a sea. Would anyone stand in the marrow's way if you're near the tent? All right. So then those marrow go storming off. And Efram, have you approached the tent, or are you finding trouble elsewhere? What are you up to right now?
So I think that once we got into Ashford, Diggs let me know that he had some errands to run, and so I just sort of nodded to him and let him know that we'd catch up later. And I ended up following Iska around because Iska has been here before and Efram has not. So I would have followed Iska around a little bit, maybe eaten a little something, and then as we approach the tent and I see what's going on and I kind of push through the crowd and I'm trying to see, I would see Kathleen or somebody that looks a lot like Kathleen, and there would be this strange sort of chill that would come over me. The hair on my neck would stand on end. And if Iska would notice the sort of like change that came over Efram, I would say, no, she, that woman, she just looks like someone. from a while ago, someone I used to know.
And
A lot like her, actually.
Iska would have heard this sort of thing before. He would have recognized Kathleen as a Silverwise, and he would have kind of maybe at first blush written it off as like, no, she does that kind of thing. You know, she talks to the dead. Like, you know, maybe you sometimes with Silverwise, you feel like you've seen them in a dream or a deja vu. There's kind of a haze about them. It's normal. It'll wear off. You know, he kind of tries to explain it away at first.
And then I would kind of nod and, yeah, you're probably right. But then as Kathleen speaks and points out Diego and the marrow go storming off, and I hear her voice, I would kind of realize that it is her. And I would see the eye patch covering the wound. And I get this flash of when we were walking, and out of nowhere, that arrow just, and I remember Kathleen's head just snapping back as the arrow went through her eye socket. And I remember us kicking in the door and putting her on the table and just realizing that she was already gone, that she had been gone instantly like that. And I remember burying her in the cairn with the rocks. And I remember speaking over her. And then I remember leaving and knowing that that was the cost of what we had done. And then here she is. And so as everyone's kind of rushing out of the tent and the marrow are marching off, and they're maybe even pulling out their swords, getting ready to do some shit in Ashford, I would kind of shoulder through the crowd as best as I could. And I would approach Kathleen, and maybe her back's to me, and I would say, "Is it really you?"
And she'd stop walking for a moment, and at the moment she's kind of crouched over. It looks like she's a lot older, but at the sound of Efram's voice, the haze of her memory kind of starts to fade away, and it does ring a bell. And she turns to look at you, kind of unfurling. She's definitely grown past the last year, a little taller, and most markedly, the huge eye patch almost covering the top part of her cheek. It looks like the wound had a tough time healing. Something happened. Something. And she frowns at him for a moment. Do you know me? She looks confused.
I think so. You're Kathleen, right? That's your name?
And a little bit of remembrance flashes on her face, a brief smile, but then that quickly fades. And as that fades, it looks like the color around her kind of drains to a gray pallor for a moment. And she looks somber and stoic once again. Yes, I remember now. And her voice isn't as gravelly. She tries to smile again, and it kind of wavers. Oh, wow. Oh, I hope my performance wasn't too bad.
I would, despite myself, pull Kathleen into a hug and just hold her for a second. And then I would kind of pull back, and I would see the eye patch, and I would point to her eye patch. I point to my eye patch and just kind of go,
oh, we've had quite a year.
No shit. Hell, what are you doing? What are you doing here? I mean, both in Ashford, but also here, like here. Yeah. Alive in the world. How are you here?
After that arrow, I was stuck in the gray, and it's quite a story, but most importantly, Rudy got me out. Rudy was there, and he's the one. And
Rudy was in
concentrating.
The gray?
Yeah. My memory's very foggy. It just comes and goes. But he was there, and he had something important. there's somebody missing, right? Or is Diggs there and he's just silent?
Yeah, you notice a prominent absence of Jeremiah Diggs. Given his unusually large size, you definitely don't see him.
No, we met here in Feygrave, me and Garik and Diggs, but Rudy didn't show. And well, this is Iska, and I would kind of usher him over. Iska's been kind of helping us out since we got here. But no, Rudy didn't show. And Diggs is around here somewhere, and I mean, you know Garik. He's off doing, and I would make like a mystical hand motion.
All right. Don't quite understand what you mean by that.
I mean, I don't either, but
This... You're a Darrow, huh? Right? Iska?
Yeah, and Iska's still kind of trying to piece together what they're talking about, right? He's the third wheel here, no question. He's been standing there awkwardly for this, hug and very heartfelt thing, something you don't really see in Dragongrin. And so he's having a little trouble putting himself together. But he says, yeah. And he says something, and you're a Silverwise. Oh, well, yeah, I guess you just proved, yeah. And he kind of realized he put his foot in his mouth a little bit, and he just feels very out of place here.
She kind of leans to one side and rests a hand casually on her hand axe, just giving him a close look.
And Iska sees something in her he's seen in Silverwise that he's maybe looked up to or something. He's a little bit culturally Silverwise, if that makes sense. Like, he has seen it and stuff, but it's not really a big part of his life. So, but he's seen like people that look like her, and it's just something chilling about it. And he's just kind of, it gets kind of jeebed out a little by her. And then he's, trying to play nice.
And so, Kathleen, you would remember. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Were you going to say something?
Nope.
So, Kathleen, you would remember two very specific things. So, like in the swimming sort of strangeness of your time in the Gray, I'm sure a lot of it you don't want to remember. The Wailing Gray is a horrific place in Dragongrin that's essentially, because of the time and how the time magic sort of holds the realm in stasis, it effectively is a limbo that you go and live out your worst nightmares forever. And it's very difficult to get out once you're in there. But Kathleen, you remember two very specific things. And it's almost like Rudy wanted to make 100% sure that this is what you were able to remember. Oh, go ahead.
I do remember the message.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I was going to mention, and I don't know if we discussed this, but he would have told you something about, and you can paraphrase it or do whatever you want, something about make sure they get my letter. My letter to them is very valuable. Something like that.
All right. But they're still in this tent. People are starting to dissipate, I imagine.
Yeah.
Right. Oh. It just came to me. It came to me. Efram. This was from Rudy. Drathok, the usurper, must be stopped. And there's a letter. There's a very important letter from Rudy. I haven't found it. I don't know what it means. I haven't seen him since he helped get me out.
Wait, a letter from Rudy?
Maybe from him, but it's a letter. Yeah.
Is it this one?
Probably.
And it would most definitely be. But that seems confusing because it basically just says, your friend isn't coming, don't come looking for him.
And I'm sorry, who must be stopped?
She shrugs. Drathok.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Rudy. I don't know who that is.
The usurper. Is that
I don't know who that is, but I mean, we can find out, I guess.
Iska trying to be helpful. Will we just go where some usurping is happening and see if that's our guy? Listen, it probably can't be that difficult in Dragon.
There was a
Maybe there's a
notable usurping that happened here, apparently.
So, okay, putting this
But his
A
name
and
was
B together.
Diego and not Drothok.
Okay. I hit a bit of a wall.
Are they
Maybe
the
we'll
same-
mull it over.
Are they the same person? I've been gone a year.
I kind of have too. So
It's the only usurping I know of.
Listen, we'll figure it out. And whatever the hell Rudy did for the last year, I'm glad that he pulled you out of the Wailing Gray. I'm glad that you're here. As weird and unsettling as it is to see you, the biggest emotion is gratitude and happiness. And I think that Diggs will be happy to see you too, although he puts people in the ground for a living, and so it might be weird for him to see you alive.
We'll tackle it when it comes to it. Where is Diggs?
He said he had an errand to run. Where's the most common place for people to gather around here, Iska? We should wait for him there.
And Iska would start to think of all the places he would probably never want to go in Feygrave, and those would probably be the top ones where all the people he doesn't want to run into would hang out. And so Tim, of course, I don't know where that would be, but he'd probably know of a spot or two that's like, I used to knock on this door in this alley and, get let into this place. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I think it could be fun, and I'll kind of leave it to you all, but I feel like it would be fun if we go to the same tavern where the toast took place. And so kind of pulling back to that, I think the Burnt Tankard, because Ashford basically is this settlement built around this tree that was scorched by wildfire. So it still smells like burnt magic. It still has that sort of ashen look. And even the guards and things around this place, sort of smear different symbols and stuff on them from the ash as a way to show their allegiance to Ashford. So I think that the Burnt Tankard would be not only a cool place to have like an inn and like tavern situation, but I think that that's where there would also be the most prominent stalls. So like your cool stuff where it gets a lot of traffic. And so that's probably that's the main stage in terms of the black market. I think would be kind of a cool thing.
Okay, so yeah, basically we'd probably go back there and then
yeah, I would say probably to the Burnt Tankard. And so as you all make your way there, what is Jeremiah Diggs getting up to in Ashford?
Jeremiah hears the sound of the dust that he and everyone else on this path are walking on. The dust of dried, decayed leaves, over time compressed into some semblance of a road. The smells of illicit goods, smokes, potpourris, incenses, incantations, the fumes that are blasted off of Arkans, he strike him and cause his head to hurt, which the headache increases with the blinding colors of Ashford, just the reds and the greens and the blues. It's like the red sail market incarnate in this location, and he's finding difficult to handle it. He looks up in the sky and he sees the blue moon, and it's waning, and he gazes at it, the waning moon, and breathes a little easier, knowing that it's moving from full to new. He pauses, takes a breath. He knows who he's looking for. That image in his mind, the Festier. A glimpse, not of the Festier's face, but into that person's life. This person has worked with the Undying Light before, But that is not, strangely enough, what Jeremiah Diggs cares about. That person has what Jeremiah Diggs needs to take his curse. He holds his shoulder where the lycanthrope, the werewolf, bit him over a year ago. That Festier has what he needs to put this curse off indefinitely. Tim, he finally spots him out of a sea of faces. Him, her, them. He spots them. What do they look like?
I would say they are a particularly bestial Festier, which is probably why they are here in Ashford, because Festier of Dragongrin, yeah, some call them Dragonborn, some call them, you know, they're all different kinds of creature. I think, markedly enough, probably looks lupine, wolfish, like a large wolfish creature, but not necessarily the proportions of a natural animal. Sort of elongated, maybe gaunt. I'm imagining particularly well dressed for Ashford. I get vibes of like they are very comfortable being a Festier. That's not something that they consider as a beast or a bestial or whatever. They are a person, and they are presenting themselves as a person and as well groomed as you can be in Ashford. I think she would be almost strikingly dichotomous, because you have this Festier who's this like tall, gaunt sort of wolf creature, but then dressed in I'll say ardor clothing, but the finery, so like more like Halithic, those kinds of things like that.
The stuff that might be banned outside of Feygrave.
Exactly that. 100%
that. Jeremiah Diggs has tunnel vision. Everything else in the world becomes a blur. He sees the first person on this whole journey that he wants to be participative with. He moves forward towards this Festier, and I imagine he interrupts an exchange happening. There's some sort of sale. Maybe she's selling something to somebody else, and he steps into that zone where he's close enough. He doesn't bump into them, but he's close enough to where they both stop at the same time and look at him.
Yep.
He looks down at this elf, this Talisar elf in rags, and nods to get out of the way. Go do something else. Just in a simple glance and a move. And then he turns to this Festier, who has no idea who he is. And he says, I'm going to be quick about this. I know who you are. I know what you do. I know you have the ability to help me. He looks around, glances to make sure no one's looking. He realizes he can't hope to be secretive in this crowded place, but he reveals just enough of the wound.
Very well, then. This deep, gruff, but refined voice. And you see what she sells is she's a chronicler. And so she's able to write and translate, and in a place like this, you can have illegal, illicit information, things that would absolutely be banned in Dragongrin proper, that would be contraband. You can have it here. And so I imagine she probably even rewrites and copies, like the old monks used to do, rewrites and copies of books that would be considered banned or outlawed, so that they can exist, so that more copies can be in existence of the actual history before Lightfall, before the revisionist timeline that has been patchworked together. But she also writes books for the children so that the Ardor children can learn to read. And so she's just this chronicler. And in her chronicling, she has amassed quite a bit of information and books, which is very rare in Feygrave especially. So I think what she would basically deal in is she deals in information. She's essentially she's like Google. She's the Google of Feygrave.
And I think that's what Diggs knows about her. That's all he knows, is that she has information that he needs pertaining to how to cure this, whatever's happening to him.
Sure. And I think she would. And essentially, everyone in Feygrave still needs to live, but not all deals have to do with coin, especially this far out in the frontier. Gold can be great if you're going into Innis or if you're dealing with the Marrow. But if you're dealing with each other, it isn't necessarily as important. And so what I'd like to do, if you're cool with it, is essentially in Dragongrin, there's this concept, and it's basically it's called Gleam, and it is a bartering system that's basically the exchange of goods and favors, or even select objects, rarities. So the gleam of an object, the approximate value, is specific to the people involved in the trade at that moment. So a well-made weapon or a skin of rare wine or something very specific, my kingdom for a horse, that could be worth a lot of gleam. So if I'm like, listen, all I need in the world is a sword, I'll be like, well, then let's trade. And because you need this sword so badly, you're going to have to give me a lot more than what a sword is worth in gleam or favors and goods. And so that's what she says. How much gleam are you prepared to offer?
He feels stupid. How could he not see this coming? He spent so much time worrying about finding this person to get what he wants that he did not realize that he, just like any other arrangement, would have to trade for it. He reaches into a pack and he pulls out a parchment, rolled, crumpled. He unrolls it, and you see like slits inside the parchment, revealing his license as a gravedigger in Dragongrin. And his face is pleading. Maybe this person has someone they need buried, but he knows that there's a there's a second to none chance that she will care about that, and he might become indebted for future service, because that's all he really has to offer. He does have this new Arcan bauble in his pocket. He's not sure what it does, but he has a feeling that he knows someone that might like that.
Sure. And I think she sees the expression on your face, not knowing exactly what to offer, but being willing to offer. And I think she tries to make it simple. She says, 2 favors, my choosing, and 1 after successful curing. 3 favors total.
He moves forward and kind of pressures her and says, 2 favors, and I don't tell the Marrow in Feygrave and beyond that you've helped the Undying Light, which I imagine this might surprise her, because
Absolutely.
she has no idea who I am.
Absolutely it would. And so what I want you to give me is an intimidation check.
Figured. Oh, hey. That is a grand total of 13.
Okay. So she leans back, and then she leans toward you again, and she says, 2 favors because I pity you. So she gives you what you want, but not because you scared her.
Nice. Yep. He nods, tries to maintain his composure, but he obviously can't. I imagine that he will get the first favor off screen. He will make his way back to the burnt tankard, and we'll figure out what that is at some point in the future.
That's great. I love it. No,
Cool.
I love it. Yeah, and I think also too, she'll actually say to you something like, this will take time. I need to do my research, and I know that I can cure it. And she might even make a comment because of her appearance about, it's not so bad if you can learn to control it. Like, kind of like what, wolf is beautiful. Like,
yep, right.
And so
Diggs knows he's tried.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so she's going to research that, and she asks you to just return at a later date to find out what the next steps for that would be. You go off screen and start your first favor or do your first favor for her, and then we all meet up in the burnt tankard. I think it's been a solid hour. Did we want to take a quick restroom break so that we have the whole rest of the evening, or is everybody good?
Okay, but he did make a good point about the pit stop being early rather than later.
Okay.
Because that right, but I guess we don't have to go. It doesn't matter.
No,
I'm
it's fine.
good, I guess
It's fine. I'll check in again, and if you have to,
And really quick to clarify, Tim, if it's okay, I've not done the first favor yet. I've gotten what it is.
Oh, got
I've
it.
Received it, and
Totally.
And yep, cool. We'll figure that out later, though.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So everyone, first of all, thank you for hanging out in the chat. And I just wanted to say that one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I took some of this information, but if you want to see how I'm generating this tavern, I'm actually using a book called Inspire the Tavern, written by Barker here. And that is how I'm generating this. That's where I got the description of the shelves. And so if you would like that for free, it is a 100% free download, especially for those of you who've won raffles and already have an account now. Go to absolutetabletop.com and just type in Inspire, and there you'll see Inspire the Tavern, and you can even follow along with me. But that's what I'm going to use to generate some of these details, as well as the black market kind of feel. All right. So tell me what you would do in the burnt tankard. This is certainly, as you walk by, you see the ash market, which is basically, like I said, it is prime rib in terms of the black market. Expensive things, sought after things. And as you enter, you see there are actually tome hearts, which are the automatons of Dragongrin. Now, you would know markedly that these tome hearts are not awakened, so they are subservient to a master. But you see that tome hearts guard the ash market and are also stationed within and around the burnt tankard, sort of just standing there, occasionally doing something, helping someone. Some of the tome hearts even are running some of the lesser booths and things like that. Maybe even a tome heart that's helping out the bartender.
I think just in the same way that Iska would know a lot of people that he was trying to avoid here, he would probably start to look out for some faces that he doesn't want to avoid, right? I mean, he's got plenty of enemies, but he has a few people that count him as something maybe even remotely close to friend. And he would begin sort of looking out for people like that, maybe even just to ask a few questions about some of the things that have been going on, just to kind of maybe put his finger on the pulse a little bit of what's going on around here, because he can feel a little bit that something's going on, especially having seen what Kathleen just said. And in fact, I realize now, Iska kind of is like looking for somebody to share that hot goss with. He is like, who am I going to tell that the marrow just rushed out of there? And to some degree, in a business fashion, he wants to sell it to somebody, maybe get a prospect, but he's ready to turn a profit on that.
Sure. No, that's
before
fantastic.
Someone else does.
No, that's great. So you would see there would be a couple of notable people of Ashford who frequent this establishment. One in particular is Beimer Dawes, who is a notable Drogus scavenger who essentially runs the black market, isn't in charge, but runs the logistics. So this is your poor man's red sale market, the ash market. But someone has to make sure that no one's skimming. Someone has to make sure that everything evens up at the end of the night, etc. And so you would notice her, and you would also notice Dronfuen, the Prionar architect. People just call him Dron usually. And Dron is a Zarfan Arcanic who essentially keeps all of these tome hearts running and working, but also is an expert in arcans, baubles, and those kinds of things. And so those two particularly, and if you want to roll me a D10, I'll give you another person out from the Inspire the Tavern PDF that you can also potentially go and see.
Okay, so a 6 for that, because why not? That sounds awesome.
Okay, kill it.
And what was the name of the Zarfan?
It's I'll actually it's like a really long Zarfan name, and I'll paste it in the chat. It's Dronfuen, the Prionar architect, but everyone just calls him Dron. Here you go, and I'll put it in here. And so you said a 6, James?
Yes.
Okay. So you see there's actually Nance, the traveling merchant. And you know Nance has seen the entirety of Dragongrin and basically brings her many treasures to this tavern every year to deal with the locals. And so she knows she can get a better deal from the wealthy cutthroats of here and they can easily smuggle it back out into Dragongrin proper. And so she'll have like these emerald lensed spy glasses, just all kinds of crazy rarities. And you could see that she's maybe looking for a buyer for some pretty nice stuff that she's recently come upon.
And I think, I mean, yeah, let's go talk to Nance. I imagine Nance being somebody that Iska idolizes in a way he doesn't understand, like a mother figure, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, he just has a little bit of a weird draw to her, but it's so like platonic and sort of paternal, I guess. And you know, it's up to you if that flows both ways. But he would talk to her and look at her stuff, knowing full well that he probably doesn't have the money to buy whatever it is, but he wants to, spend a little time with her. Especially because he can't really make it to Ashford very often, and this is kind of a special occasion.
Yeah, and I think Nance would. It would be both ways in terms of. She's probably always wanting you to at least keep your nose a little cleaner. She's like, be a better criminal. Like, she's not saying don't be a criminal. Please.
A little bit of Maz Kanata. Is that her name?
I don't
know.
Just
like from Star Wars. Yeah, Maz Kanata with the big goggles, the lenses.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Where she's just like, no nonsense. Like, I taught you better than this. What are you doing? But still a little bit like, oh, but I want to talk shop with you, So, yeah.
I love it. And maybe there's even some sort of, I don't know if you have a heritage in mind, but maybe she is also Darrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I like that. A little bit of like just that enough familiarity with like, oh, we're kind of together in this thing, in that way.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
That, yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And so, so she's there, and she is well known enough in Ashford that it isn't uncommon for her to carry very valuable objects on her to show potential buyers. And so she has a very nice sort of thick bag that is resting on the table. And she's drinking a particularly nice sphere wine, something probably pretty old and pretty expensive, pulled off the shelf. And everyone's allowed to, if you want, you can invent a drink from the wall. Don't forget the bartender collects drinks, so you can get crazy with it. So
awesome. And yeah, so Iska would kind of sit down and revel a little bit in some of the small talk before kind of going into this bag maybe and taking out some of the stuff and just letting her talk about. I feel like I don't mean to set you up as the GM to describe the stuff, and I'm happy to do it narratively, but basically what I'm describing. Okay, yeah.
I am fully ready to describe this stuff. I actually rolled
perfect.
a couple of things from another PDF that we have called Be a Better Weapon Master 2, because we always say we make what we'd use. And so I thought, why make this stuff up? We already made it up. I'm going to use the books we wrote.
Right. So that's perfect because Iska would just be like, oh, and what's this? Like, just ready to, you know what I mean? Reveling in that moment.
Sure. And she would absolutely chide you for even thinking of reaching into her bag. Like,
Yeah.
So Nance handles her own goods. Until you purchase them, you don't touch them. It's like you touch it, you bought it kind of thing. Not literally,
Iska
but that's her
every time.
Right.
Iska's
and she
always getting his hand smacked or something.
It's exactly. She smacks your hand. And so what she lays on the table, and I purposefully left where she found them and how open, but I do have the details of the items. So what I was going to do is, Matt, if you're comfortable, I was going to describe the items, and then I was going to have you tell me where she found them. And I imagine she found them in a pair, maybe like someone was carrying them together or something, whatever. So the first item is actually a sword. And she tells you that forged into the steel of this sorceress's blade is an elaborate engraved chart of the cosmos of Dragongrin. And it's so detailed with this text written on it that it can hardly be read without a magnifying glass. But if you really look in, these etchings are there, and there's basically some secrets of the cosmos on the sword. She tells you that it's particularly expensive because, though she hasn't tested it yet, the sword is said to be able to divine the outcome of fights. So whether it's a small skirmish or even like opposed armies, before battle, it glows red if you're likely to use, blue if you're likely to win, and a flickering purple when fates are too close to be decided. So that's the sword. It is currently nameless. The shield is very heavy. It actually, she kind of has one of the tome hearts like drag it up. It's heavy steel wrapped in stretched, gleaming dragon's hide. And the large ridge of like the dragon's scaly brow crests along the top of it, making the chrome metal underneath almost look like a malevolent eye. And when the bearer focuses heavily on the arcane rune that is engraved on the grip, it's said to protect them and those around them more than any normal shield could. And this could potentially, since it's made out of dragon flesh, she said it's not verified yet, but it's very potentially a Valen.
Oh, see, I thought you fancied yourself an Arcan girl more, but you know, I know you follow the money usually anyway. Yeah.
Well, I fancy myself more a rich girl. And so, what I was going to say is that I think that she would have a story about where they came from. Matt, do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, so I have this idea that after many of the armies of light lost at the climax of Lightfall, they created what were known colloquially as rout piles, which were basically like these piles of weapons and armor that were just tossed as the Marrow were kind of watching them sort of march back home. They had to get rid of all their weapons and armor. And a lot of these weapons and armor were melted down and they became, you know, steel to be used for the Dismembered Lord's war machine, or they became manacles for the Ardor drudges. But she managed to go through a lot of these rout piles back in the day and it scrounged up many interesting items. And this sword and this shield were both found in the same rout pile on a battlefield in Grin.
Oh, I love that. And so, James, I think I think this is very uncommon. So that she's pulling out some of the big stuff. So she has plenty that she sold before, but these seem like just especially exotic and expensive. And you might take note of that it's like, wow, this is like, these are uncut gems. These are like the big ones. These maybe even be, I'll even say it, these are sort of the fabled prizes of her collection. Like Matt, like you said, she's gotten some good stuff from these route piles, but these are the fabled ones that are like, these are the ones. Yeah, and so for her to bust these out is pretty substantial.
Yeah. People in the know that this is like a very high level curation to some degree, right? Even these three things or these few things together at the same time is to raise an eyebrow. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she sort of comments on it, and she's like, I'm going to be leaving.
Leaving? What? You're a staple around here. What would we do without you?
Things are changing in Feygrave. And she sort of looks around. Things will be very different for all of us. And she realizes that you don't understand. And so she puts her hand, her small, wrinkled hand on yours. She says, Iska, I'm not leaving Feygrave. I'm leaving Dragongrin.
And Iska would stare at her silently for probably a few seconds and say, Are you sick? He would go to, he knows maybe what she means, but he's kind of pretending that the most reasonable thing would be that she'd be terminally ill, not that, she's, well, whatever's happening. He might,
sure.
But he's just like, just probing,
Yeah, absolutely. She's like, no. Iska, this world is sick. We don't have much more time. She looks around. Things are changing. The Talus has fallen. This realm is a patchwork as it is, and it's tearing further. Iska, I can bring you with me. I've always fancied you. You'd have to pay your way. But I'll be leaving in a matter of days.
And Iska would ask the question he's not one to ask, but more because he's curious. Truly, he'd say, is there no way to save this world?
Well, there might be, but that's not for me to say. It's not for me to do. I'm getting older.
And Iska would say, okay. I probably can't stay much longer, but I had something else to ask you. This is a shot in the dark, but hey, you're leaving, so maybe.
Yes.
Do you know anyone that can handle lycanthropy? I'm kind of running a little bit of I guess you'd call it a job, but it's something special. But I just need, a little touch of lycanthropy maybe cleared up for a friend I know. A guy I know, a person, someone that I know.
Yeah, I would say Rasha, the chronicler, would be the first person I would speak with. She's going to ask for favors, but she'll probably get the job done.
So, see, I was hoping you would say that. I have something else to ask you. You're leaving. I don't know if you need these things or exactly what that looks like. And hey, feel free to say no pressure, but I'm the guy that has to ask. Do you have anything I could give him in return for that instead of a favor? Do you know if he'd take something?
She would take a book, a rare book, anything she doesn't have. And she'll pretend like she won't at first and still ask for the favors, but she wants that book. and the door swings open. And in walks something that none of you have ever seen before. It is a marrow, but you immediately notice that their uniform is not the same in terms of the colors of the veil and the loincloth. The marrow are known for their crimson veils and the other pieces on their armor. Instead, this marrow has a green veil and a green loincloth. And somewhere on them is emblazoned a hawk. And you see most of the marrow who you've seen in Ashford, the scant few here and there, haven't even had their helmets on. But this marrow's armor is polished. It is pristine. And you see that they have the rank of not commander, but Barker, you're an army. What's the one under commander that we wrote?
Oh, I'm an army.
Not lieutenant, not
Captain.
Who wrote this book.
Legionary.
Thank you, captain.
Yeah, captain.
Army had a half day, mother.
Army had a half
Lieutenant,
day.
captain, colonel.
It is a captain. So it's not the commander, it's the captain. And they come walking in. I should have asked this before I said that they busted through the door. But Matt, where is Efram's sword?
Hidden somewhere very safe and concealed. No, he's wearing it on his hip like he always does. Very obviously.
And so the tavern falls quiet as this marrow walks in, because this is not normal. This is like, who is this? And they walk in, and their footsteps can be heard creaking along the floor. And as they actually say, they make a comment. There's probably a couple of marrow sitting there with their helmets sitting on. Probably the two who just were with Kathleen are probably here, like talking over a drink, And they make a specific comment. Oh, well, I guess it's casual then. And she pulls off her helm, and it's a striking, dreadlocked black woman. And she scans the room and walks up to the bar. And I don't know, Efram, exactly where you are, but I feel like she takes notice of you. So she probably sits at the bar. Things are kind of quiet. And as she sits at the bar and she starts drinking, she sort of starts looking around. You hear like the bone plate in the leather sort of just squeaking a little bit as she turns. Where would Efram be, and what would he be doing?
I'm at the bar getting a refill. They have Creaking Tree cask here, this whiskey that
nice
Efram can't find anywhere, and they actually sell it here in this bar. And so he's getting another shot of it. And the bartender pours the shot and walks away. And Efram is sitting there like trying purposely really hard to just kind of stare at the counter, and like his eyes are kind of wide and his eyebrows are sort of up. And he just hears the of the creaking bone plate. And he's like, just takes a little sip.
And I feel like this marrow would order something that a lot of people think is probably pretty gross. So if you don't like it, you hate it, like cream soda, where it's like people who love cream soda, but anyone who doesn't is like, they think it's disgusting.
Oh, it tastes like toothpaste.
Tastes like toothpaste. So she orders this cream soda sort of, oh, you know what? It'll be this, it'll be like a Grenache, like specially before their fall. I mean, this is like 100 years old, and she orders it from the top shelf, and this tome heart has to climb this, huge steel ladder to get it. And as you're sitting there sipping, She does not look over. She's sipping this drink that smells, has citrus hints, but it also smells like a sweet bourbon. And without looking at you, Efram, she just says, "Nice sword. Where'd you get it?"
Route pile. Nice armor. Where'd you get it?
You're not from around here.
Is anyone?
I like you. My name is Dareth. Dareth Gracehand, formerly of House Arios. And you would know, especially from being and the time you spent in the Dustmouth, House Arios is to be determined later famous Crucian house for X thing that we'll figure out.
Yeah, as soon as I hear the Crucian name, I can probably tell with her accent as well. I just sort of tense a little bit and pleasure. I'm Efram.
Efram. I won't forget it.
Shit.
Enjoy your drink, Efram. And she takes this this gold coin, this gold wraith. I don't know when the last time you saw a pristine minted gold wraith from
Probably
Grin.
never.
Right. And she snaps it down with her thumb. And this is the first time she looks at you. She says, "Drinks on me. Enjoy it while you can." And then she gets up. And even the bartender at this point's looking at this gold coin. Probably everyone in the room is looking at this freshly minted gold wraith. And then she takes a couple steps. She goes to put her helmet back on, and she doesn't turn her head, but to the two Marrow who are now like slinking down in the corner, she goes, "Put your damn helmets on." She puts hers on, and then she walks out.
Efram is silent for a second, and then he slides the gold coin to the bartender and says, "Next round's on me for everybody." And I just down the shot of Creaking Tree cask, slam it down on the counter, and turn and start looking for Diggs.
Where would he find Diggs?
You see Diggs across the tavern, bringing Kathleen the third round of this this specific drink from Varnholm called Quick Melt Ale, and it's just the reason he's, first of all, we've had this exchange between him and Kathleen where he, similar to Efram's, where he realized that she's alive again, and the last hour or so has just been celebrating. And the only region, the only dominion in Dragongrin that he's never been to other than Talus is Varnholm. And so they're celebrating by just, going crazy with different sorts of brews from all over the world. And so you see that he's a little bit tipsy. I can't speak for Kathleen, but you see his broad-shouldered frame near the corner of the room where Kathleen is sitting.
And Kathleen is there. She has her rapier still tucked away, but it's across her lap. And she is so delighted that there's this quick melt beer. It's the only thing that right now seems to kind of warm her. And her usually pallid gray skin actually has a little bit of blush. She's had just enough beer. And she looks around her every so often, like in disbelief that she's not in the gray.
Yeah. And out of the corner of your eye, Kathleen, you see occasional things just up in the corner of a room. And then you look and they're not there. And you'll see something move just so in the shadows, or the mirrored look of a wolf's eye. And then when you look, it's not there. And you're just tainted by this place. It has definitely stained you in some way. And I imagine as you're all sitting there kind of catching up, etc. Matt, one of the things that you notice is as everyone's getting a little more loose and a little tipsy, and it's been maybe 30 minutes since that Marrow from the Legion of the Hawk stepped out. I think everyone's kind of chilling and everything like that. And Matt, you notice that you've actually placed the letter that someone sent you, presumably Rudy. And it's kind of, you realize you're like, oh, crap. And you realize that it's actually sitting in some of that quick melt ale, just a little bit of it. And you realize that as it's wet, that this entire other message has appeared on the sheet, on the scroll. And so what was connected in Crucian or common of your friends not coming, don't come looking, is just part of this extremely long, tiny little marks of a language that I don't think any of you understand. And so you see that.
Efram's walking back to the table and he sees the letter and he sees the pooling condensation from the drink. And he's like, guys, you're going to use my stuff as a coaster. Just hold up. Wait, hang on. And he would sit. There's a lot more here than was there before. Look. And he holds it out to Diggs and Iska. Look at all this writing.
Diggs looks at the writing. He speaks and can read Crucian, Holith, Dual, Titan Speak, Silvercant, and one more that I haven't decided yet.
Okay, polyglot.
So, do you want to roll the dice and see if you can guess what language it's in so that you can choose it? Or do you want me to just tell you what it's in and you tell me if Diggs would know that language? Because I'm fine with either. No wrong answer.
I want you to tell me what language it's in, and if I don't know it, then I'm going to use my +1 that's sitting on my character sheet and exchange it in for that.
Yeah, so it is Draconic.
Okay, hold on. Actually, I'm going to be fair about this and roll for it.
Sure.
Okay, all right. 19. That's above 10. So
sure.
Diggs does speak and read Draconic. This is all very important to Diggs because Diggs has been everywhere in Dragongrin, like I mentioned, nearly everywhere. And his job has been communicating via messages with all different types of people aboard the Copper Sun, allegedly, in the Undying Light, most definitely. And therefore, he just has this knowledge inside of his head.
I love that. And it totally makes sense. So what I will say is that the writing is going to take a lot to make sense of, because what it looks like is a variety of things. It's not just a letter. It seems like notes and instructions and details and some sketches and some things like that. And right as you sort of start to like dig in and really get your head around it, or at least make sense of these pieces and realize that, okay, wait, hold on. The one thing that you're able to clearly sort of decipher immediately is Rudy has explicitly told you, I didn't die. I came in here on purpose and we have work to do. And just as you're starting to kind of like figure it out and see what's going on, someone walks up and puts their hand on Iska's shoulder and is like, Iska, come with me. And you know this person as the right hand to essentially the ruler of Ashtongue, which is Trin Garvey, also known as Anvil Tongue. And you know that Trin is a free ardor drudge. So was a drudge, was also a powerful hero before Lightfall, but then became a nomad in Feygrave when Lightfall occurred. He always kept his drudge name as a moniker. So a lot of people just call him Anvil Tongue or Anvil. And he's become a very powerful figure in Feygrave. And he and his daughter are the leaders who essentially run everything. And so this second in command, or this soldier, whoever it is, it's probably not second in command. It's probably just an Ashford soldier, just so that it can be, being frank, I don't want to add another character to the scene without an arc. So I'm going to just make it like, so, and they essentially look and, say, come with us and you can bring your friends. And a couple of them basically going to walk you into the back room, where sometimes Anvil Tongue is there, sometimes he's not, but someone wants to talk to you.
And Iska would kind of look at the other people with him expectantly, like, you want to make this night interesting? Like, I don't know, just, I guess with the revelation of the note, he would kind of try to build on that momentum, like, yeah, let's keep it going. Let's follow me, guys. Shot at Matt. I don't know.
No, a Gundam just fell off my shelf, scared the shit out of me.
I'm gonna say you went like this. You went.
I was like, oh, Matt's dying. Sorry, guys.
I turned into a 1950s starlet. I was like, and then I run over to Diggs and put my hands on his chest. And,
He grabs around. He holds his sword up to the sky.
Said, well, I never use zero gun.
You zero. How did your shirt get all ripped like that? It's all just happens, man. What do you want? I do stuff.
It happens, man. I bought it this way. Diggs actually is going to put a hand on Iska's shoulder for a moment and give him a look that says, "You don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to."
That's what's up. And so Iska, so you know where you stand with Trin. You definitely, and I was going to let you kind of decide and work with you on it. I think you owe him an especially huge favor.
Of course.
That is not one that he would hurt you about or that you would probably be in trouble for, but he's definitely going to ask after it while you're here for sure. So you can make whatever that relationship is, good, bad, or ugly, what you did, and we can figure out what that favor is in play.
So Iska would say, he would look kind of at the guard, or like this guy and Diggs at the same time and go, no, it's not compulsory, right? Like, I don't have to go. I mean, I kind of want to see what Trent, what Anvil Tongue's been doing recently, but right? And he's kind of like, no, Diggs, no, we don't have to go, but I'm gonna.
Efram would actually speak up.
Yeah.
Efram would speak up as the guard is moving away and we're kind of getting up from the table. I would say, I think it's best if we all stick together. There was a really scary marrow lady over at the bar. And honestly, I think with the stuff coming out about Diego, I think this place is a tinderbox, and I think the marrow are going to start fighting any second now. She had an emblem I've never seen before. It was green tabard with a hawk on it. Mean anything to anyone?
Where is she?
She left a while ago. Paid for my drink with a wraith. I've never even seen one before.
Iska's like, you would see an instinctual response that he would try to tamp down. He wouldn't say anything. He would just, his eyes would like get bigger and just like.
Also, I told her my real name and she said she would never forget it. And now I'm really scared.
Do you want to leave the other direction? And he nods toward the back door.
Yes, I think that is probably a good idea because I think she mentioned my sword.
You can tell that Diggs is somewhat disappointed. For some reason, he wants to chase after this fly. I mean, this marrow, and but he shakes it off. It didn't take him long to feel part of the group again, and so he nods towards Iska. Lead the way, scumbag. You know he means it in jest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He'd do something like a you too, or no you, something like just kind of like a quick, simple deflection.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah. Like
we'll say that same thing that we said in the first session that I can't remember in this moment, but I'm going to go back and watch it so that can become our regular thing.
Yeah.
But we have that same exchange.
I love that.
And yeah, so then in that case, I would go back and I would sort of mention casually, like, to Efram, like, that what you said about everything changing, that sentiment's going around. I'm getting some weird vibes from some sort of fixtures I know here. So, yeah, I think it's best we check this out.
We came to Feygrave to live free, and in literally the week we show up, a civil war starts happening down here. Like, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go? He looks at Kathleen. Clearly nothing has changed.
Clearly nothing has changed. I'm still here, clueless. My eyes gone. But this drink is really great. And she just downs another one.
And Iska would say something that would in the normal world sound almost like maybe he was talking about the boogeyman. Depends maybe on what you feel, but he'd say, somebody I know, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Somebody I know told me they were leaving, but like leaving, like no longer dealing with Dragongrin. So I know it sounds silly, but whether it's something you believe in or not, if you're curious where the place is, I'm not sure, but allegedly it exists. And he would kind of almost like that's what you'd say to superstitious people. He would not really think much of it and not really know what to make of that and make his way back to, the back room.
Kathleen would also get up and follow Iska and trying to look a little more professional.
Yeah, and she's definitely tipsy. I don't think she's sloppy drunk because it hasn't all hit her system yet, but probably will throughout this interaction with this very important person. And then James, just to kind of put a Dragongrin kind of knife to it, I think that you would see, like, as this is all going on and as the hand and Diggs and all this, Nance is actually at the door and she catches your eye and she just puts her hand up and mouths the word goodbye. Like, that's it. This is glad we saw each other. And then she walks out the door, probably forever.
And Iska would put a hand up, kind of after she had turned and, watch her sort of leave and have a little bit of a pang he's felt before. He's lost plenty of people. But he has a little bit of it's a little happy in that it was probably maybe the first person he can remember in recent memory that didn't scream at him before they said goodbye.
That's great. And so this next part, I want to be especially collaborative because I don't want to just describe a back room. I think it would be really cool. So essentially, this is where Trin Garvey hangs out. This is Anvil Tongue's lounge if he's here. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Justified, but Boyd owned a bar. And in the back of the bar, there was like this big room where they would do business and there were couches and all that stuff. So everybody, if you feel like you want to, go ahead and name me something of interest in this room or someone of interest or anything like that. Barks, why don't you kick us off?
The first thing that Diggs would look for is the weapon that Anvil would grab and use in case of things going sour.
Yeah.
And what frightens Diggs the most is that he doesn't see it.
Ooh.
He drops something on the floor, picks it up, looks under a nearby table. It's not underneath that. He doesn't see it on the walls. He kind of sizes Anvil up and down, doesn't quite see it on Anvil, but he understands that Anvil's not that stupid.
Mhm.
So that's what he sees, is that clearly Anvil is intelligent, and there's a weapon some here, or in some way it's so hidden that Diggs can't find it.
I love it. Who would like to go next?
Efram, similarly to Diggs, would be looking for the exit or a place to hide in this room. And similarly to Diggs, he cannot find it. There's seemingly one way in and one way out of this room. And the way that the furniture is arranged, the way that if there's any art or statuary is arranged, everything is in full view. And specifically where Anvil sits, he can see everything and everyone in the room. He literally cannot be snuck up on.
Mhm.
And as Efram notices this, he would tense up and there's a creak of leather armor, and he reaches over and starts rubbing at the bandage on his left forearm. Stays close to Diggs.
Iska would notice something new. He's been here before. And he would notice an enormous painting on the wall. And it was like it's beautifully rendered people screaming and seeming in agony, almost a very classical painting. It seems like there's not enough agony for the suffering they're showing. And Iska sees this, this beautiful ornate frame, and he kind of sees a little shimmer, and he's kind of casing the joint, realizing also there's no way out and everything, but he keeps coming back to this painting. And every time he realizes it's a little bit different and something moved a little bit, and it occurs to him that it's a painting you can enter, right? It's a complicated arc, and he's only heard stories of. And it's the prison of, that Trin has, right? He's gotten where he's gotten in Dragongrin because he locks people in a magical painting, when he doesn't want to deal with them anymore. And Iska realizes, there's no way, that's a story. Absolutely. And he kind of suddenly remembers where he was again and tries to compose himself.
In Holith, the language of the Ardor, it says underneath it, if anyone can read it, there's a plate under it that says Astragard's Solution.
And Kathleen comes in, and she's still a little inebriated, but she's looking somber and stoic once more, the color starting to slowly drain from her cheeks. And as her boot slides along this nice plush carpet, a little bit of luxury in this little back secret area, she seems to savor just the sensation of, instead of wood and rock, it's this nice little carpet, because she's been gone so long. And she looks around and sees how everybody else seems to be looking for the exit. Seems very watchful. She can't help but look to the corners, seeing little, looks almost like sludge pulling from the wall, two light eyes looking down and then going back into the corners, sometimes creeping from side of the room to the other side.
That's amazing. So you would notice immediately how strikingly handsome Trin Garvey is. Just a beautiful man, even in his probably 50s. And so he would address you, Iska, and we don't have to decide what the favor is unless you have something top of mind. But I think that what he's going to do is essentially ask you about it. So sort of, well, have you come to repay my favor?
Iska tests Trin's patience, Anvil Tongue's patience, which, based on his name, is probably a bad idea. he says something like, "What? No hello?" Knowing full well that maybe with mixed company it'll go over okay, but he's absolutely pushing his luck here.
Yeah, and Trin is actually super amenable overall, pretty chill. Definitely not a crime lord vibe, but like a person who wants to maintain the thing that they've managed to cultivate out of the ashes vibe. And so he would invite you all to sit at a table that's likely carved like right out of the floor. I imagine that as this city is wrapped around the trunk of this tree, some of it goes into the tree itself. And so I think maybe even this entire room is carved out of the tree, and like the floor and some of the benches and seats. And so some of them have blankets, nicer kind of like pillows, things that you really don't see in Dragongrin. But if you were to sit, he looks at you and he says, "Can they be trusted?" And he's talking about the other three with you.
And he'd say sort of a common trope, something like, "As much as you can in Dragongrin." Like, yeah, I mean,
Right.
I haven't seen any bad signs yet, but.
Well, what I'd like to do is exchange the favor you owe me for another one.
Okay.
I'm sure you're aware of the Scrimshanders.
I suppose I've heard of him, and he's being sort of, stupidly, I don't know, coy for no reason.
That's
What happened?
Oh man, Matt is in the faction known as the Scrimshanders. And so Trin continues and he says, "We had two here. They played ball. Everything was going well. But they're gone. And I don't like having contact. No, rather, I don't like not having contact with the Scrims. Even this far out, the amount of coin and goods that comes through here for it being as deep in the woods as it is, I need to know that I'm greasing the right palms. I don't know what happened to the Scrimshanders. Do you?"
And Iska would mask his lack of knowledge about exactly what happened to the Scrimshanders and begin instead trying to show off about how much he knows. He would talk about the bodies falling from Talus. He would vaguely describe, someone leaving Dragongrin, a staple. He would like kind of big up that he knows that his spies are telling him kind of some of these things. And he would be getting to the point about to tell him about Diego, maybe when he starts getting impatient with him. Iska being Iska, basically.
Give me whatever charisma-based roll that you're using, and I'm going to oppose it with my own charisma, and I'm going to warn you that it's high.
Okay, yeah, because this is what Iska does. He's always really pushing it. So, I do not have great deception, which is just perfect.
Well, you can do a performance. Like, I'll let you spin it. People do different things with their charisma to kind of get by. So if you can convince me otherwise, I'll absolutely let you use another.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to actively try to convince you in a cool way to decide what I'm doing to use my stat that's higher. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's D&D, baby. What's that?
So this is going to sound, I don't know. This is probably a hard sell, but
Strength. No.
Strength. No, I was thinking survival. But the way I was going to spin it is the idea is that Iska is trying to connect all of these things. He's working so hard to all the things, the note from Rudy, Kathleen showing up, the performance he saw. He's trying to figure out, like, at the last minute what all these things mean so that he can do the thing, and show he wants to decide what the favor is, almost, right? I think that
Sure.
obviously you have something in mind, but like he would bring up the usurper guy. He would try to pretend like he knows what he's talking about. So obviously I can just do a performance on that.
Okay, so you would openly share, and I know you were just kind of, riffing. So I want to make sure I'm clear that you're going to openly share the stuff that Rudy is sharing with you with Trin, because it's up to you.
That is no, that's a fair question, because I guess Rudy would, realizing some of what he realized about that these people, he's a little close to them and everything, that he would go to say that maybe and stop, realizing that maybe that was privileged information.
Maybe not your news, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's fair. So, but he would get close, but he would. Yeah, so I'll roll. I think I'll do performance, because he would try really hard.
Yeah, that's fine.
He fails miserably. I got a 6 total.
Okay, because I would allow you, as ridiculous as it sounds, I love the inventiveness of using survival. If you want to try it, the way that I would see it is this: what you're doing is you're putting these pieces together of how Feygrave is being affected by these things, like the bleak veil and the talus, the falling of all those people. And to me, he would still be upset at you. He would know that you're lying, but he would value the information that you shared enough to hand wave it. That's how I would play that. If you want to do
exactly.
it.
Yeah, Iska would. Trin doesn't actually ask Iska questions to know the answer. He asks Iska questions because he knows he'll get something else.
Sure.
And so,
I love that.
He's
it.
playing him. Iska loves it, but he's being played hardcore, because I think Trin knew exactly what I would say, basically. You know what I mean? He might as well have said, hey, come in and tell me what you know. But if he had done that, I would have never told him.
That's
but
perfect.
I start shooting my mouth off. So, yeah, so I still don't do very well, because the roll on the die was only a 7, but that would give me a +3, putting it at 10. Maybe he has some idea of what he's talking about.
Sure. And I think, Trin realizes he's probably poking around, that you probably don't know what happened to the scrims. But what he would say is, we're not sure about the connection yet, but the scrims were doing something with Malvio Rand. They were seen together too often. Feygrave's small enough that it was noticed. So we don't know what, but we want those answers now. And he has, at this point, it would probably be his daughter, who I haven't named yet. But I think his daughter would speak up and provide some information that was written by the chronicler that and Diggs, you probably maybe even recognize the handwriting or the color of the ink, some unique facet that made you think of her, Rasha. And so she begins, I guess I'll call her Lyissa. So Lyissa begins to read off some details. She says, here's what we know. Feygrave. The bleak veils? Obviously, that was to close us off. But why? And so she starts kind of putting some pieces together. She asks, have any of you heard of Quintus Fulvius Calidus? You might know him better as the Hawk.
Iska would kind of back up a little and turn, like, almost to include other people in the conversation. Like, they may know something, just kind of, I'll pass the floor over to them.
Well, this is all that we know. And it took blood and more gold wraiths than I would care to admit to get this information. Calidus is the 5th son of a middling house in Grin. Crucian. By all accounts, he should have lived an unremarkable life. As you know, with the Crucians, as a 5th son, there was nothing for him to inherit, and so he was given to the Legion. But that's where he began to shine. In officer training, he proved himself to be able to think of the bigger picture in ways that his fellow students couldn't. Time and time again, he succeeded in war games. He even managed to defeat his enemy in the legendary Crucian Kanai battle. As we all know, that magical simulation is designed to teach officers humility by giving them defeat. The Hawk beat the Kanai. Then he was given command, his own command, after years, to root out and destroy the dissidents in Talisar. He was the only commander who was able to outwit the guerrilla fighters, and eventually found and crucified their leader. We have information that the Hawk, named such for he sees all, he seems to predict the actions of his enemies. You can see account after account. He wins fights in non-traditional ways. He always allows his enemies to win, just to explore how they react to the victory. And then he crushes them. Calidus the Hawk has gotten new orders. And you see this very nice envelope, something that shouldn't exist in Feygrave. And you see that this is like a stolen missive, something that has the official seal of Grin on it. You see this black envelope. It's beautifully written. And out of it, she slides this piece of paper that probably costs more than any of you make in 2 weeks. And she slides it over. And at a quick glance, you can see that the Hawk's new orders are to restore order to Feygrave. Bring it from being a frontier that the sovereign does not have his grip on to become the second Grin, the beautiful shining beacon that it should be at any cost. And you see that the bleak veils are to hold things in. You see that there's information about how the way to get to Talus and Feygrave back and forth are these famous crossings. They're almost like Fey teleporters. You can see that they're having problems getting them through. So they're not working properly. So his soldiers are working, but he's siphoning through as many soldiers as he can, a few at a time. And so you're seeing that hopefully by the end of the month, he'll have half of his legion in Feygrave, restoring order. And one of the things that is written at the bottom of the missive is that he is to replace Marrow Sergeant Pamelito, who has run Ravenrock for years. He is going to replace her. And that rumors are that in Feygrave, heroes will no longer be welcome. She slides the paper to you. So we're here, stuck behind a bleak veil, as the Hawk prepares to dive.
Diggs unnaturally speaks up with this stranger. And even more unnaturally, he's very participative about this. He says, "What can we do to stop him?"
And you could see that for the first time, because Anvil Tongue is extremely charismatic. He usually has an answer, even if it's to buy him time to get the answer. And you can clearly see he doesn't know. And I think he would just say, "I don't know. But we have to do something." Or,
"How does he plan to bring the life tree back? Or does he plan to do that?"
"I don't know that kind of thing."
Diggs looks Trin up and down, then looks to Iska. Realizes in that moment that everyone's kind of looking at him, that he has stepped out of his comfort zone and into this light. Just and backs into a corner.
And then he would look at you, Kathleen, and he'd say, Death Speaker, you've done good work here. You've helped a lot in Ashford who don't have much. Say some goodbyes or get some peace about those who've fallen in these woodlands. And for that, we're thankful. Sorry you're all wrapped up in this.
It's all right.
And just then, someone comes running in. Trin, you've got to come quick. I don't know what it is. It's bad. And you see the tome hearts. And so everyone seems to be running outside of the burnt tankard, and you hear some sort of shouts and screams and things like that.
Looks like it might be time to make a cup of gold.
And Iska would wait for other more armed people to go out and kind of filter between or with them. Like he would find some people to group up with, especially if Efram and Diggs and Kathleen are going. He'd be in their shadows, basically.
Kathleen would absolutely walk right out there and see what's going on.
Okay. To any that walk outside the tavern, you would see that it is dusk. And when the sun sets in Feygrave, it looks like the tree line is on fire. The fade star is so bright. And you see the way that Ashford is positioned. I'm just imagining this sort of like, as you run out, I'm imagining this sort of like long, narrow alleyway, but very large, almost like if it were modern day, I almost imagine it as like a street in San Francisco. Like when you come running out, there's like this sort of street and you can kind of see over it, but there are trees that line the entirety of it. And this strange white smoke, more than you can realize, is barreling toward, and you can see it in the distance. And as it moves closer and closer, this crazy, strange white smoke. Kathleen, you start getting these strange, like weird flashes of the gray. And you start getting this sort of silhouetted view of like three figures. And you sort of see these things just kind of like, and then you maybe see Rudy for a second and it looks like he's in danger. And you just keep seeing these flashes. And as the smoke rolls over the hill and starts coming down this alleyway, it then stops and is like dry ice, just like, and people are sort of like standing near it. And it slowly starts creeping. And you can see that there are some that kind of just are looking around. They're like letting it surround them. And it comes closer and closer to the burnt tankard. And then more and more people are being sort of enveloped in it, like, hey, where are you? Hey, can you see anything? And then you just hear what it would sound like if someone was ripped in half. And then you hear what sounds like groaning, straining knots and roots. And then you hear, ah, no. And then someone tragically says something like, things were just starting to get better. And then what you can see in the smoke, you sort of see these tangles of what look like, and maybe there's a light from inside. Maybe someone tries to shoot off a spell or something, and you see this silhouette of what look like dozens of creatures inside of this smoke. And what you would know if you spent any time in Feygrave, especially you, Iska, is these look like triarchs. And what triarchs specifically are these sort of fey creatures made of, sort of these living plants and so on. They can come in humanoid forms and bestial, but these seem especially twisted. They are tainted. Something is wrong. And Kathleen, and even you, Iska, you sense this strange sense of like, it's difficult to describe how a plant could feel as though it was necrotic or necromantic, but that's what you feel. And as this light pops off and as you see these different silhouettes, you see that these triarchs are here. And one of them makes a strange sound. Do any of you speak other, I know, Diggs, you said you speak. What were the languages you speak?
Like all of them.
Crucian, Holith, Dual.
Triarch, sentient fog, whatever you got.
So you know what?
Look through the.
This actually makes the most sense.
Fog.
Sentient fog.
I speak sentient fog.
This actually makes the most sense. You'd probably hear it in Draconic. So anyone who speaks Draconic would understand this. But to anyone who didn't, you would hear probably like, "Oh, Stasia." And Diggs, you would know that says, "We've come for Kathleen." And that's where we're going to end it.
Over Diggs's dead body.
If you feel like, now here's the thing. I do want to take a bathroom break. If you do want to roll into a combat, I have one ready, but I know we're at 9:12. So do you want to do a quick bathroom? I have something that I'll run for y'all and kill you, but it's totally up to you.
It would have to be 18 minutes.
I could do that. 2-minute potty break.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, like at some point we might.
I know I can't do that. Yep.
Yeah, right. I'm like, listen, I had grand plans.
We could,
too.
yeah. We could do a round of like one-liners that we all give over my dead body. I'm gonna uproot your plans or something. That's dumb.
And then
I'm gonna uproot your plans.
We'll vote on the best one, and that's what Diggs will say next season.
Well, and I what I didn't want to do was have the combat happen and kill any of the really cool role play that was going on. I felt like we had a good vibe going, and there was this like tension in Ashford. So I didn't want to like. Thank you, man.
No, I think that was cool.
Yeah.
That was really awesome.
People need to know that like half of this at least was just throwing stuff at you, like that Festier. I just made that up and I threw it at you, and we role played something that didn't exist. That like this was so close to being all improvised. How fun for AtCon Live too. Damn,
it was really neat. And for the prep, I used all of our own books. I just pulled things. Everything I used, most of it was in Feygrave, and I just switched some stuff around. Messed around with a couple of details to make it right, and then leaned on the characters to have some really cool moments. And like that whole thing with Cassie in the beginning, I gave her a very little bit, made sure she was cool with it, and the rest was just her improving and kind of doing that. So
I do still have a little reaction that
and that's what I was going to say. If you want, what we can do is, how about we take a quick potty break, and then I'll let everybody kind of do a closing of what their character does, how they respond, and then we can pick it up in the next session with whatever we decide to do.
What I have a better idea. What if we do that now? Because we're gonna have to break before the closing ceremonies anyway.
Great idea.
We do it now and then potty break after that.
Okay.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, so
third solution.
No one goes potty.
Pee your pants and role play. Listen, I have to pee, so I guess I just got to character act it. So Diggs has to pee.
Yeah, I'm gonna be behind Diggs in line, but we should.
It's all that freaking ale.
Stand in the urinal.
I think Diggs is feeling very protective, and a little bit is the ale, but a
Sure.
lot is the fact that he's tied in. He has an objective for the first time in a long time, a very specific objective that's not dig these graves and dig them quickly, which he's very good at. He's gathered everyone into that umbrella for him. I think that he's beginning to feel like he's the protector of this group in some sort of way. And the most unsettling thing about this, in the face of these Triarchs, of which I'm not sure he's ever actually seen one, he's unafraid.
I love that.
I think as they go out and they see this mist coming, there's a little pulse in the air, and it's almost like she's getting hit by the arrow again, and her head just kind of goes back and then back again, and then finally she just collapses to the ground on her hands and knees as these things come forward and the fog is creeping around her hands, and she looks up and there's this look of rage and defiance, and she says, "I will not go back." And she is pissed.
Iska would not believe everything that's happened. All the things he's done today have been the opposite of what he would usually do. But similar to the sentiment Diggs is sharing, Iska feels that. He feels a little bit like he was told by somebody he idolized so greatly that things are changing. And it sort of flipped a switch in Iska. And he sees these people as people he can hopefully build bonds with, because Dragongrin is changing, it's dying, all these things that he was told. And he gets ready to fight because he suddenly understands what people feel like when they have a cause. And he doesn't know exactly what that is yet or why it feels that way, but suddenly he thinks maybe he'll have a part in Dragongrin's end, and he's excited to be a part of it, even if that means dying right here to these Triarchs.
Efram sees the mist rolling into town. He sees the towering, creaking shapes of these Triarchs, a creature he has never seen before until now. He hears the words that they speak, and not really speak, but the sounds that their boughs and branches and roots make as they move. And even though he can't understand the words, it sounds like a threat. And he sees Diggs stepping forward protectively, Kathleen preparing herself. He reaches down and draws out his mother's short sword, holding it in reverse grip. And with it, he cuts the bandages off his left arm. And with a twitch, a blade made out of primordial bone slips from his forearm from this scar tissue, and he catches it as it comes out, holding it by the haft. And he's holding both of these blades, and he stands there next to Diggs, but also slightly behind Diggs, because he's brave, but he's not that brave. Efram stands ready to protect his friends.
And Trin notices this with a smile, and he sort of glances backward a little bit, because Trin's not a coward. He's up in the front line, probably standing next to Diggs, I would imagine. And he sort of looks back and he goes, "I had a feeling. I'm excited to talk about it later."
And Efram kind of does like a Han Solo, like, little shrug.
Yep. That was Those That Remain, Shades of Grey. And you are watching at Conline 2020. I want to give you some cool news that I think is kind of a neat way to do this, which is I reached out to Lloyd Collins, the Jarl DM, and I said, "Lloyd, I want you to be the villain of my campaign. And so Lloyd created and came up with the entire concept of the hawk. And the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to give him a certain number of marrow. And he and I are going to play a mini game where he places them all around Feygrave. And like wherever he puts them is basically what you guys are going to have to pit yourself against. And so Lloyd Collins, ladies and gentlemen, the villain of Those That Remain, Calidus the Hawk. And so I just wanted to make sure to tell you all because I thought that was a cool meta to reveal now that you know who the Hawk is. And it's going to be really fun because I'm giving Lloyd like challenges like you can only get a certain number of troops through. How do you want to do it? You know, these famous crossings are broken. How do you want to fix them? And we're just doing like chat and he'll just tell me. And then I'm like, all right, cool. And so then, yeah, so he started getting some troops through the famous crossings. And that's why you saw one of the Legion of the Hawk. And so, yeah.
So awesome.
That's so dope.
That is the coolest thing.
What a cool idea. I'm so scared.
Yeah,
Every once in a
right?
while, I see Lloyd do something that's so freaking cool that it makes me irritated that he did it.
Yeah.
The last Jarl DM game I played in, an owlbear ripped my arm off, so I'm not looking forward to him being in charge of the bad guys.
You know, and the truth is that he's really good at it because he's like, it's cool. I'm like, wow, I never would have thought of that. That's way worse.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really
way
cool.
worse.
That's way worse. And so, but I also wanted to make sure that this campaign, like, there's a chance. Maybe you're not enemies. Maybe there's a bigger enemy. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I followed the Matt Click rules where I'm like, I know these pieces are the pieces I want. I want to seal them in Feygrave, and then I want to just see what happens. And so far, I am really excited with the character choices that everyone has made. So that is our game. Thank you for tuning into AtConline 2020, which is not over. We're just taking a short bio break, as Jake calls it. I also love that. And so be sure to tune into that. We're going to be doing the ABTA Awards, which are just like fun awards that you can nominate anyone for. Special big ups and thanks to Heather Dodson-Smith, who actually made the awards and filled them out based on everyone's nominations. She did that today so that we'd have them for this ceremony. So stick around, and thank you all for hanging out in the chat and making this awesome. It was really awesome to have met our goal. And I'm so thankful for everyone who gave. So is there anything else that anyone would like to say before the closing ceremonies?
I just want to point out how cool it was that we had Feeding America in the chat briefly during our game. So I saw they actually retweeted us on Twitter and then jumped in the chat themselves and told us that the amount of money that we've raised in donations alone, this is not including t-shirt sales or the PDF sales for the month, is 11,000 meals going out to people right now.
Wow.
So that's pretty incredible. So thank you everyone who's been donating.
They exchanged some banter with Connor Davies too. Like he cracked a joke and they were like, can we trade swords for meals? Can we donate swords? And they were like, yeah, we'll try to work that into our system. Or something like that. I was like, whoa, that was so dope. I thought it was a bot at first. No, that was a real person.
I seriously thought it was a bot. That is so
I thought you guys were joking. You're like, oh, Feeding America's in the chat. I was like, oh, sure. Yeah, they are.
That person is going back to Feeding America like, listen, I didn't know what to expect, but holy crap, the things that they did in that game.
We feed America, but everyone starves in Dragongrin. No, go ahead.
I did want to say that coming back to Dragongrin and then having like the book and all this material to use and stuff made me so excited to actually flesh out Kathleen and realize what she is. So I'm also very excited, and yeah. I really like the book that you guys made because damn, I got to make such a cool character.
Yeah, it's been very cool to live with somebody who is currently enjoying and using the book. Because Cassie asked me something, oh yeah, like we both get to talk about it because I live with somebody that's now reading it and stuff. So it's really cool. Sometimes she'll bring something up I forgot was in there. I'm like, yeah. So it's been so cool.
So thank you for including me because I super love the game. It got me into it.
Good. I'm really happy. And I think that, you know, as we have a rotating cast, you're definitely welcome back. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why we can't, you know, all play again together. And like Nate's character right now is off, and we worked out a cool like side mission for him that isn't so big that it should happen on screen, but it's not so small that it won't affect things. And so maybe Garik is going to have some answers about what these tree arcs are and why they're different and what this fog is. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll just have more questions. But love you all. Thank you for hanging out in the chat. And Jake, I'll throw it back to you.